We begin the Gemara today on the top of Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Going back to what it said in the Mishnah, Ha-hedyet toifer kedarkai. A plain person is allowed to weave normally on Chol HaMoed. So the Gemara, Heichi dami hedyet. What does it mean when it says there hedyet? Who's considered to be a person that's doing this plainly and not doing it as a professional? Amri de Rab Yanai, kol she'einu yochel lohoitzi muloi machat bevasachas. An individual that cannot place the needle into a garment and make a few stitches at once and then pull and tighten all the stitches at once. He has to do one stitch at a time. That's a person that's not a professional, and what he's doing on Chol HaMoed, he's doing it as a hedyet, and he's allowed to do it the way he usually does. Rabbi Yossi B'Chanina says, Kol she'einu yochel lachaven imra b'chefes chalukai. Someone that cannot make it straight when he makes the hem of the garment, and he's not able to make it exactly straight, so he's not a professional. So he's allowed to weave regularly. When it comes to a professional, so he has to do his stitching in an unusual manner. The Gemara will explain what this term means. Mai machliv, what does this term mean? Rabbi Yochanan Omar mafsiya. It means that he makes the stitches scattered out, distant from one another. What's one shot? And Rabbi Bashmuel Omar shine kalbasa, that it's made similar to the way the teeth of a dog are, which is one is up, one is down, even if they are near each other, but they're not exactly in a straight line, they're up and down. Rashi here says that even according to the first pshat, the term machliv also is related to the teeth of a dog, because there are two things about the teeth of a dog. They're distant from one another, and there are also some that are higher and some that are lower. And the first pshat is mafsiya, that they're spread out, the stitches are spread out. And the second pshat is kalbasa, shine kalbasa means that the stitches are not in a straight line, one is up and one is down. Misargin is hamitois, it said in the Mishnah, misargin, when you're preparing a bed, you have to set the bed and you put the cords to hold up the place to lie in it. So the Mishnah used the term misargin. And then it said that Rabbi Yossi said you're not allowed to be misargin but mematchen. You can stretch out the cords. The Gemara will explain exactly what misargin is and what mematchen is. So the Gemara, my misargin, what does this term misargin mean? My mematchen, and what does the term mematchen mean? So Kiyasi Rav Dimi Oma, when Rav Dimi came, he said, Pligi bar Rab Chiya bar Rabbe v'Rabasi. Rab Chiya bar Rabbe and Rabasi argued about this. V'tarvayu mishmei de Chizkiya v'Rab Yochanan. And both were quoting Chizkiya and Rab Yochanan. Chad Omar, one of them said, misargin means shasi ve'erev. When you put the cords on the top of the frame of the bed, and you're putting them in both directions, the length of the cords and the width of these cords. So you're completely preparing it to be able to put down a mattress or a blanket or whatever it is on these cords. Chad Omar, another opinion is, misargin means shasi b'lo yerev, that you're stretching out these cords on the bed only in lengthwise and not in the width. Umematchen, sorry, I missed one line over here. So again, according to the first opinion, misargin means shasi ve'erev, and then umematchen, according to the first opinion, means shasi b'lo yerev, just putting the cords on the bed lengthwise and not widthwise. The chadoma, the other opinion is misargin means shasi b'lo yerev. The term misargin means preparing the cords on the bed only in the length and not in the width. Mematchen does not mean at all putting the cords there. Rather, what it means is shemhoya rafoi. If any of these cords in the bed got loose, mematchay, he can stretch it and tighten it. That's the machlokes here regarding these two terms, misargin and mematchen. So the Gemara, is this true? But v'atani Rav Tachlifa bar Shaul, Rav Tachlifa bar Shaul said the following: V'shavin, everybody will agree, she'ein mafshilin chavalim lechatchila. You're not allowed to braid ropes from the beginning, to make the ropes in the first place. That's the chiddush that he said, that everybody agrees to this. Now, what was the chiddush here? Bish loime, this is understood what the chiddush is. Laman dama misargin shesi ve'erev. The opinion that says that misargin means you can put the cords in the bed both in the length and in the width. Mematchen means shesi b'lo yerev. Mematchen means you could put the cords only lengthwise and not widthwise. Hainu, diktani Rav Tachlifa bar Shaul. So Rav Tachlifa bar Shaul has to come and let us know, v'shavin, that everybody will agree, she'ein mafshilin chavalim lechatchila, that you're not allowed to prepare these ropes in the first place. Meaning, even though there is one opinion that you're allowed to prepare the entire bed by putting the cords in the length and in the width, So you may think that if so, maybe I'm allowed to make the cords themselves. So he tells you, no, you're not allowed. Misargin means, what does misargin mean? Shasi below yerev. You're only allowed to stretch the cords across the bed in the length and not in the width. Umematchin, what does the term mematchin mean? That if these cords will loose, you're allowed to tighten it. It's not hashta. Shasi ve'erev omrit loy. If you're telling me that you're not allowed to put the cords in the bed, both directions, in the length and in the width, so chavalim lachatchila miboye, would it be necessary to Rav Tachlifa Bar Shaul to come and tell me that I can't lachatchila make these cords? It's obvious. If I see that you can't prepare the bed and putting the cords in both directions, for sure it should be self-understood that you can't prepare the chavalim, the ropes and the cords in the first place. Dr. Gemara Kashya, according to this pshat, this remains a question. The Gemara asks further on this pshat. Could you say that there's an opinion that says that misargin, that the term misargin means shesi below yerev, putting the cords on the bed only in the length and not in the width? But Vatnan, we learned in the Mishnah Masechta Kelim, which discusses at what point a bed is a finished keli that it could be susceptible for tumah. So there it says, Rab Meir says, Hamita bed mishayisrig ba shloisha batim. When he puts the cords on the bed and there are 3 batim. What does the term 3 batim in this context mean? When you have the cords that are placed on the bed in the length and in the width, and it creates 3 different areas, three different spots where you have it in the length and in the width, that's considered to be a bed that is already susceptible for tumah. So what do we see over here? That it's clear that the term misargin, or in this case mishayisraig, means that you're placing the cords in the length and in the width. Shasi ve'erev. So how could there be one opinion here that said that misargin only means shasi without erev, only in the length and not in the width? Says the Gemara, so Ravin. So when Ravin came, he explained as follows: Omar, b'misargin. As far as the translation, the meaning of the word misargin, kula malay pligi. Nobody argues about this. The shesi ve'erev. It means that you're putting the cords in the bed in the length and in the width. Ela rather, ki pligi. When is the argument here? B'memaschen. They're arguing about the term memaschen, which literally means to stretch out. But the argument is, what does this mean? Mar sovar memaschen shesi below yerev. So one opinion is memaschen refers to the fact that you're placing the cords in the length and not in the width. Umar sovar, the other opinion is shema yerafoi, that those cords that are there already, if it was loose, then mematchay, you can pull it and tighten it. So they're only arguing about the term memaschen, not about the term of misargin. The Gemara asks on this, meisvei. So we learned in the Braisa as follows: misargin is hamito. You can be misareg the bed, which means putting the shesi and the erev, the cords on both directions. Needless to say that you could be mematchen as well. Divrei Rab Meir's opinion. Rab Yosi, as we had in our Mishnah, Rab Yosi said mematchen avoloi misargin, only mematchen and not misargin. Now there's yet a third opinion here that says ein memaschen kol iker. You're not allowed to be memaschen at all. You can't do anything that's mematchen. So let's see what does mematchen mean in this context. So the Gemara says, Bish domar. Now the fact that we have here an opinion that says ein mematchen kol iker, that this is totally not allowed. So this is understood according to the opinion that says mematchen means shasi below yerev. That means placing the cords in the length and not in the width. Hainu the asa yesh omrim la flugi. This is why the yesh omrim here is coming to argue and saying that this is not allowed. Right, that even the shasi without an erev cannot be done. But according to the opinion that says that if it was loose, that you're not allowed to tighten it. According to the yesh omrim, even this is not going to be allowed. If you're not allowing him to tighten it, so where is he going to sleep in the bed? Why? This is not even a full malacha at all. He's just preparing it to be able to sleep on the bed. There's no reason. Why would the yesh omrim say that even just to tighten it would not be allowed? So the Gemara says, we could say so. Kivin, that the yesh omrim holds that even just to tighten it would not be allowed. Kivin, the efshe lememalye b'money, since it's possible for him, instead of putting these cords across the frame of the bed in order to be able to put blankets on top and sleep on it, since he has another way, leefshe lemalye b'money, he can fill up the place with garments or with pillows and blankets or whatever it is, instead of tightening the cords in the bed. So leit tarchinan. So on Chalamayid, this is considered to be a tirche, a work that he's doing that's for no need, because he can do it otherwise. And therefore the Yesh Omrim says, not only you're not allowed to put the cords in the length and in the width, but you're not allowed to do anything. You could just temporarily sleep there by putting things inside the frame of the bed to fill it up, that you should be able to sleep there. Sagt the Heilige Mishneh, Ma'amidin, Tanor, V'kirayim. You're allowed in Chalamayid to set a Tanor, which is a place that's made for a pot, that it has a place for 2 pots in it, and kirayim is an oven that's made for 1 pot. So you're allowed to set this in the ground on Yontif. Verechayim, and also a meal, is also allowed to be prepared and set b'moed and chalamayid. Rabbi Yehuda says regarding the meal, ein mechapshin es harechayim batchila. You're not allowed to go and chisel the rechayim in the beginning on chalamayid. Now, what does this term mechapshin mean? Zok the Gemara, mai mechapshin. What exactly is the person doing when he's chiseling this mill? Rav Yehuda says, menaker rechaya. What he's doing is, as Rashi explains, when you have a mill that has to grind the kernels of wheat, when it gets very old, so it becomes dull. It's not sharp enough. It's not able to grind. So you have to sharpen it. You have to. Menakir is over here means to sharpen it, that it should be able to break the kernels and grind it. That's the term mechapshin. Rav Yechiel says baseina. It refers to making a hole, like an eye hole, that you place the kernels inside that hole and it goes into the mill to get ground. Frag the Gemara Meisveit says nabraise mamidin tanor v'kirayim b'mayit. You're allowed to set an oven, a stove on chalamayit. But you don't complete it fully on chalamayit. There's some different parts that you have to do, like if you smear it and finish it off. You don't complete it fully on chalamayit. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim say, af yigmar. You're allowed to set your oven on Yontif in the ground, and you're allowed to fully complete the work of it to be ready for use. Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, Ma'amidin es achadosha. You're allowed to set a new mill on Yontif. Umechapshin es hayeshana. And you're allowed to be mechabish, chisel an old mill on Yontif, on Chalamayid this is. And others say, ein mechabshin kol iker. You're not allowed to be mechabish, you're not allowed to chisel at all a mill, whether it's old, whether it's new, it makes no difference. Now the point over here is, the Brisa uses the term mechabshin regarding an old mill. Says the Gemara, bishlem lamandam mechabshin. Now it's understood according to the one that says, what does mechapshin mean? Menaker rechaya, that you're cleaning it out, which means you're sharpening it out in order to be able to grind properly. So haina de mishkachas lo biyushana. That's the pshat over here in this brisa when it says mechapshin regarding an old mill. Like I explained, what happens is it becomes dull and you have to sharpen it again. But the one that says that you have to make an eyes hole to place the kernels of wheat inside, yishana baseina lamelo. If you have an old mill, it definitely had already an eyes hole to place the kernels inside. Why is he being mechabish? Why is he doing this for an old mill? Answers the Gemara, Kagain, the Kabayel Arvuchet Fei Porta. Yes, it had this eyes hole, but yes, it wants to make it a little bit wider to be able to put in some more at once in that hole, and that's what it means, mechabshin, to chisel it out, to widen the hole. Rav Huna heard there was an individual, the that he was chiseling, he was sharpening his mill on Chalamayid. Omar, so he said, Man hai, who is this individual? Aschel gufe, his body should be desecrated. The kamochel chulademayida, because he's desecrating Chalamayid. So the Gemara explains, why did Rav Huna say this? So v'lo, Rav Huna held ki yesh omrim. He held like the opinion of the Yesh Omrim that a mechapshin kol iker, that you're never allowed to chisel in any way the mill on Chalamayid. Darash Rav Chama darshand neikrin rechayim b'moyed, that you are allowed to chisel and clean out and sharpen the mill on Chalamayid. And then he said, Mishum Rab Meir Amar, in the name of Rab Meir he said, Afilu sus shereichav alav, a person has a horse that he rides in it, a chamer shereichav alav, a donkey that he rides in it. So mutter little tzipar nayim b'chol shamayid. You're allowed to cut their nails of the hooves and cholamayid if this will cause them pain and they won't be able to walk and ride. You won't be able to ride with them properly. So you're allowed to remove these nails and cholamayid. Taisus here says it must be talking about a person that's riding this horse or donkey for a purpose that is necessary for cholamayid. Aval chamra derichaya. If you have a donkey that's used for the mill itself, it's the donkey that's moves the stones by walking around, and he's the one that's doing the grinding. Through him, the grinding happens. So, like for him, you're not allowed to cut off his nails because just a little bit that has to be done for cholamayid itself. The little you have to grind for this time. It's not necessary to cut his nails for him to be able to do it. And you're only allowed to cut the nails of the animal if you need it for the work that you have to do for cholamayid itself. Rav Yehuda shari, Rav Yehuda allowed lemishkal tufri lechamra derechaya. He did allow to take off the nails of the donkey that was used for the mill. Uloik merechaya, to set the mill in the ground. Ulemivne rechaya, to build the mill. Ulemivne amas rechaya, also to build the wooden base, it seems, for this mill, ulemivni oriya, and also to build a barn for the animals on cholamayid. Rave allowed, or another opinion here is this is Rav allowed shara l'seruke susya, to comb the hair of a horse on cholamayid. Ulemivni akarfita, and to build a trough that you place the food for the animals inside. Ulemivni itztaba, and to build a little structure of stones, Rashi says. Rava shara lemishkol dama lebeheme b'chol demayed. Rava allowed to let blood from a behema on cholamayid if it has to be done for its health. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye said, Tanya de Messiah, I have a brayse that proves what you just said. Makizin dam lebeheme, you're allowed to let blood for an animal on cholamayid. And also, ve'ein meinen refuah lebeheme b'chol shamayid. You don't hold yourself back of doing anything that's there for a behemoth that has to be healed in cholamayid. So Taisus says that the chiddush here is we're talking about a kind of refuah that there's some kind of malacha involved in this. If not, and it's just like the refuah that it speaks about in other places regarding Shabbos, that there's no refuah that you do on Shabbos or Yontif because of the gzeira that you may come to grind the samamonim, the spices needed for the refuah. That's not what we're speaking about here. It would be obvious that it's allowed. But here we're talking about a refuah that it involves malacha, but for the purpose of the animal, it's allowed to be done on cholamayid. Rava shari likiskusi kirmi. Rava allowed to press, to iron clothing, certain type of thin garments. My time, what's the reason for this? Maisa hedyitu. This is something that even plain people do. Something that's a maisa ummah that only professionals do is not allowed. If it's a maisa hedyet, it's allowed. Omer Rav Yitzchak Barami, Omer Rav Chiste, kituri beiri aser. But when it comes to sleeves, whether you're pressing the sleeves or you're creating the pleats that in these sleeves, which is something which is unique, that's not allowed. My time, maisa umanhu. This is something that only a professional does, and that's not allowed in cholamayid. Omar Rave, so Rave said, Haiman de maskelara, if a person is clearing out a field, clearing it out from stones or from different things. Adai to the beidari, if his intention is in order to make it flat, to use it for a threshing floor, for his grain, so then shari, that's allowed. Adai to the ara, but if he's doing it for the purpose of the ground itself, that he's plowing the ground itself to be able to plant there, aser, so that's not allowed in cholamayid. Hey chidami, so how do we know what the purpose is for? So in our Gemara, the Girsa, it says, mulya b'mulya. If you're placing the earth or whatever there is on a hill, and you're placing that on a hill, or benatza, or if you have a place which is lower down, which is in a pit or in a ditch a little bit, and it's lower down, and you're placing the things over there that are in that ditch, you're placing it over there, so then adaite debei dori. So then I know that the person's intention is just to use it as a threshing floor. Shaka mulya v'shada b'tnatza, but if you're taking a place where there's a little mountain in your field and you're placing it in another area where there's a ditch, then adaita dara. Then you know that he's trying to flatten out the ground in order to be able to plow there and to plant there. That's the girsa that there is in the Gemara here. However, Rashi learns it in the exact opposite, as the Bach changes the girsa over here. And actually, if a person is clearing out this field and he's not particular about getting rid of the mountains and the lower places, he's just clearing it out. So then it's possible, well, actually you see that he's trying to do it just to be able to plow and plant in his field. It doesn't bother him the fact that there are mountains and there are ditches. That's the way a field is, and he can go and plow such a field. Whereas if he's trying to create a flat area in order to be able to thresh there, he does want to have it flat. You need it to be flat for threshing. And then, in such a case, you know that he's only doing it for threshing. So the Gerus in the Gemara is the exact opposite. Another halacha the Gemara said, another halacha that Rav said is Haiman the Zachi Zichi, if a person is clearing out the field from pieces of wood. Adaita the Tzivi, if he's doing it for the purpose of the wood, he needs the wood, Shari. So then that is allowed. Adaita the Ara, however, if he's doing it for the purpose because he wants to plow and plant in the field, that's forbidden on Cholamayit. So how do we know? Heichi Dami. Shakal Ravreve, if he takes the large pieces of wood, Vishavik Zutri, and he leaves the small twigs of wood, so then Adaita the Tzivi. So then we know that he just needs the wood for firewood. Shakal Ravreve Vizutri, but if he clears the field from the larger pieces of wood and also the small twigs, Adaita Dar. So then it's clear that he's trying to clear the field completely in order to be able to plant there. And Rav also said, a person that opens up a gate to allow the channel of water to run through and come into his field. So is that allowed on Yontif? Adaita de Kavri, if he's doing this for the purpose in order to get the fish that will come in with this channel of water, Shari, that's allowed to you be able to use the fish to eat in Cholamayit. Adaita de Ara, but if he's doing it for the purpose to water this field, then Aser, then it's not allowed. Heichi Dami, what are we talking about over here? How do we know the difference for what he's doing it? Pasach Trei Bavi, if he opens up two gates to allow the water to come in, Chadmi Loi, one from opening higher up where the water will flow in, and the Chadmi Tatoi, and then another gate he opens at the bottom where the water will flow out. So then we know that Adaita de Kavri, he only is allowing the channel of water to come in, so the fish should come in, he'll catch the fish, and the water flows straight out. He's not doing this to water his field. Pasach Chad Bave, but if he only opens up one gate to allow the water in, and then the other gate he leaves closed and the water is going to stay in the field, Adaita Dar. So now we know that he wants the water to stay in the field and it's going to overflow into this field. Another halacha Rava said, Haiman the Pashach Dikla, a person that's pruning his palm tree. Adaita the Chivasa, if he's doing this for the purpose to feed his animals, Shari, so that's allowed. Adaita the Dikla, but if he's doing it for the purpose in order to improve the tree itself, that it should grow better, Aser, that's not allowed. So Heichidami, where do we see the difference in what he's doing? Shakil Kule Mechad Gise, if he's taking off branches all from one side of the tree, whether it's dry branches, whether it's not dry branches. So Adaita the Chivasa, we know he's doing this for the purpose to feed his animals. But if he's taking off the branches and he's very particular on all the sides, he takes off only the dry branches, Adaita de Dikla. So we know he's doing it to improve the growth of his palm tree. Vasar, and that's not allowed. Another halacha said, Hani Tmari Tuchlani. So these dates that are not ripe, so you have them and you can do two things with it. So migzirinu, if you want to cut it open and then eat it, Shari, that's allowed in Cholamayit. Maitzinu, but if you're going to press it and take out the moisture of it, and then you're going to leave it for a later time to dry it, to make it into dry dates, Aser. That's not allowed because you're not doing this work for something you're going to eat and use now for Cholamayit. Rav Papa says it is allowed. Kivin the Misali, since by removing the moisture of these unripe dates, you're making it possible to be able to use it later. Because if you're going to leave the moisture inside, what's going to end up happening is that it's going to get full of worms, and then later you won't be able to do anything with it. So since by doing this, you're taking away the possibility of it becoming wormy, kiprakmatya, it's like a business that you have of this merchandise, of these dates, and it's like something which if you're not going to do it now, there'll be a loss, and vishari, and that is allowed on Cholamayit. And Rava said this general rule regarding any business you do on Cholamayit. Prakmatya kol shuhu aser. Any business for profit on Cholamayit is not allowed. Some Rav Yesi bar Avin, Rav Yesi bar Avin said, "Du bedavera avid mutter." That if this is something which you know you'll have a financial loss, then you're allowed to do this business on Cholamayit. And Taisus here clarifies this does not refer to the fact that if he's not going to sell now, that he's not going to make a profit. But it refers to the fact that if he's not going to sell now, he's going to lose even the principal. That's called a davara avid, and it's not allowed. Ravina Avale Hahu Iske. Ravina had this business, this merchandise. To have him Mizdavim B'shita Alfi. It would have been sold for 6,000 on Chalamayid. Shahiyai Lizevune Basar Chula de Mayede. He waited to sell until after Chalamayid. And then the price went up, Vizavne Betreisa Alfi, and he was able to sell for double the price, for 12,000. So you see, waiting and not doing in a Chalamayid, you don't lose, you only gain. Ravina Ava Masik Zuzib Ibn Akre de Shinvasa. Ravina was trying to collect money from the people of Ne'akre by Shinvasa, and he couldn't get them to pay him. So Asala Kameda Ravashi, he came to Ravashi, and Amalei said to him, Ma'ala Mezel Hidna Alayu. Could I go now on Chalamayid to go and collect the money from them? Amalei, so Ravashi told him, Kiv in the Idna hu de mashke chislahu. Since now Chalamayid, everybody's home, and it's easy for you to find them. And b'yay machrine loy mashke chislahu. On another day, you'll want to go collect this money. It won't be so easy to find them. Keprakmatya ha'avedami. This is like a business where there'll be a financial loss, v'shari, and it's allowed. Tanya Nami, we learned also similar halacha gabe avedizare. By the halachas of doing business with a goyf and of Avodah Zarah, Kai Gavna, similar halacha, that Hoilchin liyirid shel akum, you're allowed to go to the marketplace, the day of the marketplace of the goyim. V'loikchim behema, you buy their animals, avodim, servants, shfachais, maids, batim, houses, sadis, kramim, fields and vineyards. V'kaisev umayla berkan shalem, and you should also go and write up a document in their courts. Even though you're doing business with a guy and there are certain situations where it may cause the guy to come and praise his Avodah Zarah, but nevertheless this is allowed because you're coming and you're saving something from their hands by buying this from them at this time period. Same thing over here, when there's a davara of it, it's allowed to be done on Chalamayid.